All right, well, let's get this started here. We got a conversation. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to Source Material, the Comics Podcast, episode 211 coming at you here. We are getting ready to dive into a decade that we rarely jump in.
And we'll never go back to again.
We'll talk a little bit about that here in a second. But yeah, we're talking Avengers, and we're talking the Kree Skrull War. This came out in the early 70s, written by Roy Thomas, penciled by Sal Buscema and Neil Adams. They were trading off pencils throughout. In my opinion, you can tell the difference for sure.
And John Buscema.
And John?
He does the last issue.
Oh, okay. Because I saw Sal, and I was like, oh, okay. I got that confused. And then
Neil Adams stops at 96, and John Buscema joins at 97, the last issue.
Now, okay, give me the relation. I assume Sal's his dad?
Brothers.
Okay, Sal and John. All right. So, yes, that is what we're getting into here. Avengers 89 through 97, starting in, according to Mike's Amazing World of Comics, Mike'sAmazingWorld.com, approximate on sale date, April 6th, 1971. So, Mark Radulich, I mean, we're jumping into this. Obviously, sir, are you ready to attempt to talk some Kree Skrull War?
I'm going to give it my best shot.
All right. And that voice you heard, all right, I got a special intro here. You ready? Oh, boy.
Mm-hmm.
Let me get my phone ready because I got to get this all queued up. I got music even. I don't think I've ever done this before. Surprise, surprise. Mark and I are out of our element once we leave the modern age. So cue the Quantum Leap music. Theorizing that one could read comics outside prior to their own lifetime, Mark Radulich and Jesse Starcher stepped into the source material accelerator and vanished. They awoke to find themselves trapped in the past, facing versions of comic characters that to them were a bit unknown and driven by a narcissistic force to podcast their experience. Their only guide on this journey is Al, an observer from Resurrection's and Adam Warlock and Thanos podcast, who appears in the form of a guest host that Mark and Jesse appreciate coming back to the show after being subjected to their nonsense. And so the guys find themselves leaping from comic to comic, striving to take notes and not get pronunciations wrong, and hoping each time that their next leap will be the leap home. There you go, Al. Al Sedano from welcome to the Source Material. Welcome back to the Source Material Comics Podcast.
Why don't you fucking marry him, Jesse? You've never done a special intro for me. What the hell, man?
You have no idea how long I've wanted to do a Quantum Leap intro for Al. You have no clue.
Whatever.
This is his third episode. I wanted to do it since episode 1.
I asked if you two wanted to be alone. Do you need a room?
Perfect.
Maybe later.
So, Al, we have the schedule up there on the Source Material Facebook page. You saw Kree Skrull War. Tell us why. I mean, kind of give us an idea as to why you wanted to talk about this. We had a lot of them up there. You picked this one. Why did you choose the Kree Skrull War?
Well, based on what I normally do anyway, cosmic stuff is usually is the stuff I enjoy. And based on our talk on New Teen Titans, and this is the fact that this was going to be 9 years earlier than that, I kind of figured you guys would need some help with that one.
Yes, my goodness, do we ever. I mean, the characters that we get into in this book are not completely unfamiliar. I mean, Goliath took me by surprise as to when I figured out who that actually was. This is not my wheelhouse. This is definitely not Mark's wheelhouse. Mark, did you ever, I know your dad read comics early in his day, and he still does, doesn't he? He reads some, doesn't he?
He reads, he'll borrow stuff from me. He's not really collecting anymore, but occasionally, he'll borrow something from me if he likes it. He borrowed my Greg Rucka Wonder Woman. He borrowed, Snaggapuss.
Oh, yeah.
So he'll go through some of my comics. For a while there, I was buying a lot of stuff in advance and just kind of keeping it on my to be read pile. And he'd go through are you reading this anytime soon? And be like, no, not really. He's like, okay, well, I'm going to borrow it and give it back to you in a month.
Was he reading Avengers at this time, or what was any idea what he was reading?
He probably read the Avengers when it was timely, when it was going on.
Gotcha. As we said before, we're hopping back to the Bronze Age, and why, in fact, are we doing this book tonight?
Well, believe it or not, it relates to the Captain Marvel film that comes out March 8th.
Okay. All right. And
yes, that makes sense.
From the wiki.
Oh, okay. Please,
At the 2017 San Diego Comic-Con, Kevin Feige revealed that the film would take place in the 1990s and the Skrulls would be the film's villains, allowing elements from the Kree Skrull War 1971 comic book storyline to be used. Regarding the elements from the Kree Skrull War used for the film, Schwartz said some paranoia elements would be featured, but would not be related to the anti-superhero act as in the comics. He added that the Kree Skrull conflict is a much more of a kind of backdrop and mythological underpinning for the movie than it is a direct lift like the plot of Captain America: Civil War was.
Okay.
So there.
Okay. All right. So
that's
you
why
said
I'm reading this.
Kree Skrull War. Did you have any idea what you were getting into?
Nope. And now I'm sorry I did it.
I could tell you didn't exactly have an idea as to what we were going to be reading when you were like, we're hopping back to the 90s for this one, the 80s? And I'm like, no, the 70s, sir. The early 70s.
Barely the 70s.
Roy Thomas, known for a lot of
this was
titles.
back when Marvel writers were apparently being paid by the word.
I have no idea. Al, you probably know a lot more about Roy Thomas than I do. Have you read anything else by this guy?
Oh, yeah. Actually, he was writing Avengers West Coast when I started reading it, and he wrote most like the last half of that series. Of course, he's known for he basically took over most Marvel titles in like the late Silver Age when Stan Lee stopped writing them.
Okay.
So X-Men, plus he's known for his run when he came back to X-Men with Neil Adams towards the end of that first run. Avengers, Captain Marvel. No, yeah, he did some Captain Marvel, I believe. And he's also known for a lot of his stuff at DC, including All-Star Squadron and Infinity Inc. and Young All-Stars.
Okay.
He basically took over the whole Earth 2 thing.
Oh, okay. Got it.
Up until Crisis.
Got it.
And he's also pretty much known as one of the founders of comic fandom. Him and Jerry Bales, they started like the first, for the most part, first known like fanzine, Alter Ego, which still exists today, more or less, coming from Tomorrow's Publishing.
Yes.
So Alter Ego, back issue. Alter Ego, yeah, that was a fanzine. He started in the early 60s for DC and Marvel. So he's been working there since like 63 or 64 he started.
That's amazing. So he's had his hand in a lot of comic book history. Let me just lay down the format here, what we're going to do. So we got, 9 issues? 9 issues we're going to be doing. So I've divided them up 3 apiece, and I'll do a quick synopsis as quick as I can get it, all the facts in there. Then we'll just stop and do talking points. Here we go. Issues 89 through 91, Avengers. The Avengers, Goliath. As I said, Hawkeye using a Giant Man formula. The Android Vision, Scarlet Witch, the Speedster Quicksilver, and Rick Jones are hot on the trail of a recent visitor to our planet, the Kree-born Captain Marvel. You see, Marvel and Rick Jones had a somewhat symbiotic relationship due to the negative bands they both wear when clasped together allowed Marvel to switch places with Rick in our universe, sending Rick to the what is it called now? Negative Zone. There it is. Yep. My goodness. Negative Zone. However, some serious complications arise when Marvel uses one of Reed Richards' machines, bringing Rick from the Negative Zone so they both can exist on Earth. To make matters worse, Marvel is nearly dying due to exposure to radiation from the Negative Zone. Enter Ronan the Accuser, a Kree warrior who has gone mad with power after capturing the Supreme Intelligence, shoving him in a closet. After finding out that Marvel is alive, Ronan puts a plan into action to capture him and also to devolve Earth and humankind back to a primitive age where they are less a threat and turning some of our Avengers against each other. The plan almost worked if it were not for some swift thinking on Rick Jones's part and a distress call from the Kree Galaxy demanding Ronan come home as the Kree Galaxy is being attacked by the Skrulls. Immediately, leaving and transporting himself away, Ronan leaves the Avengers bewildered. After the battle is over, 2 members of the group, Wasp and Hank Pym, retire, leaving Rick Jones, Marvel, Goliath, Quicksilver, Scarlet Witch, and Vision to only wonder what is in store for the team next. Mark, I want to start with you real quick. Have you ever read anything with Captain Marvel or Marvel in it?
I mean, unless he turned up in like the Avengers or whatever, not that I can recall. I mean, I think he shows up in some of the more like cosmic crossover storylines. So I probably saw him there.
Okay, all right. Al, how about you? I mean, has he showed up in any of your? Has he showed up in your podcasts yet? Like,
yeah, plenty issues.
Okay.
Jim Starlin took over with issue 25, which basically happens right after the end of the Kree Skrull War. Because at this point, Marvel's book was probably on hiatus. It went on hiatus a few times early on because it wasn't selling that good. I mean, if you read that series, they keep like changing direction every couple issues because they're trying to figure out what's going to work. Starlin comes on with 25, and that's the first big Thanos story. If you ever hear about the story, the first thing with Thanos and the Cosmic Cube, it was in Captain Marvel.
Okay.
And so Starlin's on there doing that from 25 to 33. So we covered all of that on the podcast already.
On the show? Okay.
Yep.
All right. What do you think of this guy? I mean, I haven't read much with him in it. I mean, he always seemed like obviously a hero. I understand when they both class those bands, or when one classes the bands, like he only gets 3 hours in our universe or zone or whatever we are. I have no idea. I assume the negative zone is a different plane?
It's a different dimension. That's where Annihilus comes from. So if you ever read Annihilation, that's where they come from, the negative zone.
Got it. So, I mean, I assume this guy's a hero. Anything you can add to the character of Captain Marvel so I have a better understanding of who this guy is?
Yeah, he's one of the Kree. He originally starts off as a spy.
Okay.
From the Kree to spy on Earth and see if they're going to be a threat or not. And of course, like most, things like that, he ends up turning against the Kree because the Kree, for the most part, really rather just kill us or not care or destroy us or subjugate us. And he ends up becoming a hero. In fact, in the Marvel's first graphic novel was by Starlin. It's called The Death of Captain Marvel.
That's one of my questions on here. That radiation that they say that he is plagued with, is that what kills him?
It's been a little while since I read that graphic novel because we're going to cover it on the show, but eventually.
Okay.
We're not up to there yet. But they do in the here's the thing. In Starlin's last issue of Captain Marvel is issue 34. He fights Nitro, and Nitro steals a nerve gas that Captain Marvel gets inhaled some of it, trying to seal it. That I'm 99% sure that's the only thing they mention is what caused his cancer.
Okay.
Not this stuff here. I mean, maybe that was also part of it. I forget, but I'm 99% sure it's just the stuff because Starlin was doing both of those, so he's tying it into what he did. Got it. But in that issue, also in the Death of One, he kind of the way Starlin writes it and the way everyone reacts, like every hero shows up at his deathbed.
Yeah.
In the Marvel universe at the time, he kind of and the way he even kind of retcons it a bit, like he says, I was here, and then eventually others came, almost implying like he's the Superman for Marvel.
Powerful stuff too, if I remember correctly. I don't know if I read it or if I just remember reading a synopsis of it, but I remember it being very, you watched a hero die, and it was from it felt like very ordinary means.
Yeah, and they have not brought him back.
Yeah.
He has stayed dead since 1982, I think it is.
Mm-hmm. Scarlet Witch and the Vision here, Mark. We are starting to see kind of hints at their romance.
Love is in the air.
You got any comments here about Scarlet Witch and Vision and their potential relationship? Because I think this is like right at the beginning. Or I don't know if anything came before this.
It's a little stilted, and I think that's because of the writing. I don't think it was meant to be. The writing itself is stilted. Later on, when I would see them in West Coast Avengers and whatnot, it felt a little bit more natural. And then, of course, years later, she loses her marbles and destroys the Avengers. But I just couldn't get past the fact that, especially Vision, but all the characters, it took 97 sentences to get across a single idea.
The budding romance of Scarlet Witch and the Vision. Al, any comments?
Yeah, I mean, it's a little stilted, but I mean, quite frankly, it's a time period, so that's how you kind of have to accept. They're writing for they're starting to get a little older, but they're still thinking they're writing for 14 to 17-year-olds for the most part. Good. Like you said, later on in the 80s and the 90s when they're starting West Coast Avengers, the age bracket goes up, so what they're trying to do goes up. Half the time here, it seems like they're trying to teach vocabulary words, which, to be fair, a lot of people growing up reading comics from this time did say they learned all these words because of comics. This is the early days of their relationship, or not. It's not even a relationship, and it's Vision trying to deal with the fact that he has feelings.
Yeah,
so he does stupid stuff. There's
a classic panel that I posted on Facebook of Hank backhanding Janet right in the mush.
Well, she shouldn't have burnt the meatloaf.
They're writing
on the classic panel. That's not the classic one. That's like, oh, that's right. He does it in here. Son of a bitch.
I know, man. He just turns around and smacks her off this large dragonfly.
Can we get a trade paperback of just Hank Pym smashing Janet Van Dyne?
And the thing is, it's not even needed, because if you read that, it's like, wait, I mean, at first it's like, oh, he doesn't want her to get hit by those rays that he's hit by. But then you realize she's strapped to the thing. So he knocked her off, got her, tied her to it so she wouldn't fall, and sent her on her way. Like, dude, by that point, she's already affected by it. She's there too long. What are you doing? There's no point.
Man, we got thrown in here at the end of this like third issue. Hank is feeling, I mean, okay, aside from he does very well at smacking women, but he feels quite useless to the team. He feels quite useless to the team. He's like, if I can't be here to smack somebody, I guess I'm going to have to leave.
And look, if I can't smack my bitch up, what good am I to the Avengers?
To be fair, he is pretty useless in here.
Yeah, he doesn't do a whole lot. So, yeah, Hank retires here, leaving us with, this iteration of the Avengers is not the one I'm used to. I know we're 90-some issues in, but he seems like he's like the last core member. Am I right here, Al, that kind of leaves because the rest of them...
Well, yeah, I mean, the original ones all quit in like issue 16, except for Cap.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, issue 16 was just what? Cap, Hawkeye, Scarlet Witch, and Quicksilver. That was it for
I was
like 10
gonna say,
issues.
Vision and Scarlet Witch were like the core of the team for a while.
Yeah.
All right. Well, so yeah, he feels useless. He leaves. Mark, you got any thoughts on Ronan the Accuser here?
Pretty typical for this era, over the top, over dramatic bad guy. I mean, he was fine. I think my problem is, like I said, I hate to keep making the same point over and over, but it was very hard for me to get past a lot of the overwriting that occurs. Now, I get it. At this point, this was comics. They were not only taking you to a fantastic place far away, and taking you to this wonderful imaginative other world, but there was an element of drama in the writing, and I get that. So I don't want to. It's like, it's not bad writing, but I think for me, especially in 2019, it's very hard for me to get past that overly dramatic. I compared it to offline. I compared it to like Robin Williams doing Shakespeare, where it's just going on and on and on and on to get to the same point. And there's so much of it with every character. So Ronan's a fine enough villain. I get it. I thought he was useful in the story, but he talks like everybody else. Like, him, Hawkeye, Vision, Quicksilver, Rick Jones, they all talk the same way. And like by the end of it, I just wanted to throw my computer.
Yeah, I mean, this was a time period. I wonder if, because like this is a time period where Marvel was getting big, and like college kids were starting to, they realized college kids were reading this, and people who weren't just 7 to 12-year-olds. And a lot of times I wonder if things like this, as the time went from the Silver Age to the Bronze Age, if they were kind of going a little overboard, or like one of those things like where you're, like when the kid is trying to prove they're grown up, like they are growing up a bit, but they're trying to prove they're grown up by behaving like overdoing it. And that almost sometimes it looks like what comics are doing at that time period. Like they're showing that they're growing up, like our audience is growing up, and they're kind of overdoing the look how mature we are now, compared to what it was 5 years ago. We can do 50 big words.
I liken it to Tolkien. When Tolkien gets moving and he wants to tell you about something, it's really great stuff. And then he spends 60 pages on a teacup. Like, like, we don't. We don't.
Oh god, it's Tom Bobby. He's singing again. Oh, skip.
Well, we don't need 106 pages on Frodo's fucking family tree. Just for God's sakes, get to the trolls.
Yeah. So that kind of is in my head what this was at the time. They were kind of growing up in a bit, and they were kind of like a kid doing it too much. Because like, oh, this thing is grown up. Well, I'm going to do it 20 times. Look how grown up I am now.
The Kree Skrull War, which this is titled, we're just getting into here at the in these first 3 issues. Mark, were you like still on pins on needles as to when this war was going to start?
Yeah, that was my biggest problem with this entire storyline. Like, okay, if you look at the wiki, right, the Kree Skrull War takes place between Avengers 89 to 97. Oh wow, what an epic storyline! The Kree Skrull War took place in the last 2 issues.
Yep.
Fuck this story.
It's like the Dark Phoenix saga. If you read that Dark Phoenix saga trade, half of that is just her being, Phoenix on the team. It's the Dark Phoenix stuff really doesn't happen until like the last 3 or 4 issues.
Hang on, I gotta go to my calendar now and take it off the schedule.
Well, he's that upset. Al, these first 3 issues, do you have any talking points or anything that you wanted to bring up?
Damn, Hank Pym needed therapy. He's been insane for years.
Didn't they like take him to a whole other level when he hit the Ultimate Universe as well?
Oh, they made him worse, but forget that. Issue 60, his first time as Yellow Jacket, he's crazy. He thinks he's somebody else and that he killed Hank Pym. And they let him marry Wasp at the time. Well, he thinks he's somebody else. That's when they get married. He thinks he's another person. The man needed therapy.
Well, we know, Al, women think they can fix the men, you know. I mean, he's just a little crazy. I'm sure she thought, oh, I can make him better.
He's just a little psychotic.
He's just a little crazy.
Mark, remember what Al's saying here, because when we do Avengers Forever, there are two, I think, Hank Pyms on the team.
Mm-hmm.
And one of them is one personality from one time, and the other is the other personality that he's talking about.
Oh, exactly. Sweet! It'll be like the revival. It'll be like, you know.
Is that a wrestling reference? I assume it is, right?
Yes.
Yes. I thought. So yeah, that's Hank Pym. Yeah, damn, what a messed up dude. All right, well, let's get into 92 through 94 here.
If they had added a third Hank Pym, I could have made a Shield reference.
Sierra Hotel. All right, 92 through 94. It's funny, my synopsis just continues to get longer for each 3 issues. It's bad. All right. The Avengers catch some flack from a guy named H. Warren Craddock as they are providing respite to the alien Mar-Vell. Old man Craddock, yes, sir. Mar-Vell ends up saving Carol Danvers, who had been flying to the mansion. Her helicopter about wrecked, and Mar-Vell flew up, saved her. Even though his good deeds are known, Craddock keeps a watchful eye on the Avengers, even sending Sergeant Fury and S.H.I.E.L.D. I don't know if he's Sergeant Fury or Captain Fury or whatever he is this time. Colonel Fury.
Whitey.
And S.H.I.E.L.D. to keep them in check. Mar-Vell and Carol leave to a farm to try and take the heat off the Avengers, yet as the Avengers are sent to a hearing conducted by Craddock that quickly gets out of hand. When the meeting is adjourned and the Avengers return home, they find 3 previous members there: Captain America, Iron Man, and Thor, who we later find out are Skrulls. And they, at that time, tell the members that they are disbanding the Avengers for all time. Sometime later, the Vision revisits the 3, but he is nearly non-functional, and they have to rely on Hank Pym as Ant-Man to shrink into his body and save him. Awakening, he explains that once the others left, they aim to catch up with Carol Danvers and Mar-Vell, only to be attacked by some Skrulls. Vision leads the real Captain America, Iron Man, and Thor back to the fight, while Mar-Vell has his hands full with what used to be Carol Danvers and is now the Super Skrull, who has taken him and Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch as captives and escape to the stars on a ship. But before he does that, he attempts to eliminate another thorn in the Skrull side by dropping an ineffectual bomb on the inhuman city of Atalan. Seeing that the bomb did nothing, the Super Skrull heads back to the Skrull homeworld, and once he gets there, he's not welcome at all. But he intends on trying to regain favor with the leader of the Skrulls by showing him the prisoners that he had taken. The ruler of the Skrulls threatens Mar-Vell. So this time the prisoner exchange has happened. I don't think the Super Skrull gains much favor at all.
No, he gets locked up.
Yeah, he's like, okay, take him to the brig, whatever. The ruler of the Skrulls has Mar-Vell and Scarlet Witch, and he tells Mar-Vell, look, you need to do something for me, and if you don't do it, Scarlet Witch and Quicksilver are going to potentially die. You need to build the Omni Wave. Now, Mark, I know you said you didn't have a chance to get too far into this series before you had to kind of skip to the end. Did you read anything or figure out what the Omni Wave is?
I mean, I read that he wanted him to build it, and like all good heroes and villains, the hero kind of does what he's supposed to do, but he like tricks the villain, and the villain isn't paying attention to what the hero's doing. I just watched the original Iron Man film last night, and it was much the same thing. Build a Jericho missile. Okay, got it. And he builds a suit of armor instead and proceeds to kill everybody. And at no time does anyone think, hey, wait a minute, none of that looks like a missile.
What was the name of that phone that was blowing up in people's heads because of there was like phones that were exploding for quite a while? It was like the Samsung Galaxy something, or I can't remember. Either way, that's kind of what this is. The Kree used this Omni Wave to communicate with galaxies instantaneously. But if somebody else gets a hold of it, it can be used as a weapon or a bomb or something like that, or a gun. That is what the Skrulls want him to do, is build this Omni Wave so they can use it as a weapon. He agrees to it and says, yes, I'll do it. Please don't hurt Scarlet Witch. Don't hurt Quicksilver.
Samsung Note 7, it looks like, is the exploding ones.
There we go. That's right. So back on Earth, the Avengers have their hands full with Craddock and his mandroids And in the midst of the battle, Triton shows up. Wounded Triton. Looks kind of out of sorts, as a matter of fact. And that's where we end issue 94. Okay, my first talking point here, real quick. The art of Neil Adams. Could you tell when the art changed, Mark?
Yes.
That was probably one of the biggest things that stuck out to me, was when that it changed over and they did the whole Ant-Man inside of Vision.
Oh,
and
yeah. The best thing they ever had with Hank Pym ever was that, probably.
I was amazed. It felt like I was stepping from one age to the next. Neil Adams is still around. It amazes me the dynamic that he brought to this book when he took over. Now, I don't know how much other stuff he had been on prior to this, but I know of a few books that we've talked about afterwards. His art is phenomenal. Clearly, some of my favorite parts about this whole story was Neil Adams taking over.
Oh, yeah. Neil Adams is amazing, his work. I mean, he's the reason Batman became the huge, the Dark Knight, basically. He's half the reason of that, is his work on Batman. But yeah, no, his stuff here, and I like the Sal Buscema stuff, but yeah, you can tell, like, it's Neil Adams is one of those artists that is a jump ahead of most others, or at least definitely, especially at the time, he was a jump ahead of most others. So you can tell the change in the artwork, and it's only just the disappointing part is he's only on until 96.
The other thing I want to just quick note, these Skrulls that attack Goliath and all of them, when you look at the book, they were, and Vision explains that, hey, we were going to this farm and all of a sudden we were attacked by cows.
Yeah.
And you're like, what are you talking about? What the hell happened here? Well, way back in Fantastic Four #2, these Skrulls had battled Fantastic Four, and I think Reed hypnotized these Skrulls to become cows, and they just lived their life out as cows. For the longest time. Of course, they become members. All of a sudden, they morph into members of the Fantastic Four, and you're like, or 3 of the 4 members of the Fantastic Four, and you're like, wait a second, what's going on? Of course, then we as seasoned veterans here in 2019 who have gone through Secret Invasion and all this other stuff that's dealt with the Skrulls, we probably could figure it out as soon as it happened. But I imagine back in the day, you're like, what the heck is going on? Either way, neat little Easter egg. These are the Skrulls from Fantastic Four #2.
Yeah, when they were impersonating the Fantastic Four at the time, in fact. That's what they did in their first appearance.
H. Warren Craddock as well. Craddock, however you want to pronunciation bridge that. When I sent you guys a message online, I was like, this really feels like some on-the-nose McCarthyism stuff here.
It felt just like that. It also felt like something that it's kind of sad. It could still happen today. Like, you could see this happening right now, this part.
And almost probably named the same thing, too. Wasn't it like Alien something commission or whatever it was?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's kind of like more things change, the more things stay the same.
Any talking points there, Al, on these 3 issues?
No, I mean, it's entertaining enough to watch them fight the Mandroids, but it's one of those things, like, years later, I know the Mandroids are nothing. Like, they barely get used ever, they get used for a little bit in the 70s, and they're really not a thing ever. So when I see them, I'm like, oh, the Avengers, Thor's going to take care of this, please. This is not going to be Thor.
I have never heard of these guys up until reading this.
I mean, It was kind of cold, the fact that the other guys were like, oh, the guys are knocked out. Okay, we'll take over the armor. And so you have these unconscious guys in fighting.
Oh, yeah.
That was a little cold. I'm like, damn. So it's like, this guy's getting hit. It's like, it's okay, he's being hit. I can still make it remote control him.
Yeah, bring him up.
Dude, that's just harsh.
Well, I don't have much else to say. Like that 3-issue arc right there. I mean, if anything, it definitely gets us more familiar with the Skrulls part of this war. The first part was like, okay, this is the Kree, Ronan's part of the Kree, and now we're like involved in the Skrulls on Earth. What's happening here? And of course, with the Super Skrull leaving, bombing Atalan on the way out, which was kind of crazy. I didn't understand why are we making this pit stop, but then we kind of find out as we go into these next 3 issues.
Yeah, that was the more interesting part, was the part with the Skrulls, or like the part with them going, the 3 of them being captured, more than like the Mandroid stuff. That was the interesting stuff to me.
Yeah. All right. 96 through 97. We're going to finish this up. After making a quick work of the Mandroids, the Inhuman Triton has arrived asking for help to find Black Bolt, as he may have lost his memory walking among society. Vision almost says, no, we can't do that, and wants to go save Wanda. And actually, at that time, the team split. Captain America finds Black Bolt, is taking him back to the island. I should say taking them. It'd be Black Bolt and Triton back to Atalan, as they need to face Black Bolt's brother, Mad Maximus. Vision changes his mind, and they join Black Bolt and Cap, and all of them are at Atalan, where Maximus is entertaining a couple members of the Kree, who during this conflict, after Black Bolt shows up, the Kree escape in their ship and take Rick Jones along with them. Now, at this point, I'm like scratching my head. I'm like, what is going on here? Why did they grab him? Acquiring a spaceship from Nick Fury, the Avengers, Captain America, Thor, Iron Man, and Vision take to the cosmos to find Rick Jones and the rest of the team. Their first encounter is with the Skrulls. During the fight, the Skrulls decide that since they cannot conquer Earth to gain the strategic advantage, they might as well just destroy it, and they launch a ship with a nuclear payload at Earth. But luckily, Goliath is on the case and hops into the ship with intents to face the Skrull crew. That's pretty much where we leave him. We don't see, I think, the rest of him.
And he doesn't have powers anymore at that point.
Yeah, because he said throughout the whole issues, he's talking about how he's done with the Giant Man formula, or at least he's stopped taking it. Now, I don't know if there was a reason for that. I don't remember them saying anything. It's just that, or maybe he just ran out.
Yeah, I think he ran out. Although, I mean, Hank Pym never said, bite me, go to hell. He just said, I'm not going to be active. But you could have asked him, hey, dude, can I have more of that stuff? You got any juice?
You got any more of that? The Kree bring Rick Jones, kidnap Rick Jones to Ronan the Accuser. Ronan's like, why the hell did you do this? And they're like, I don't know. We felt a need to bring Rick Jones here. So Rick is now considered a prisoner of Ronan. Ronan shows Rick that he has captured the former leader of the Kree, as mentioned before, the Supreme Intelligence. He also lets Rick in on the fact that Earth is the strategic. I can read this. Earth is the strategic middle ground for both the Kree and the Skrulls.
It also blocks his view of Venus.
Marvin the Martian shows up while Rick and the Supreme Intelligence are in the holding cell. The Supreme Intelligence makes Rick aware that it has been he was the one that did it. He who put the plan in motion with his mental waves, all just to get the Avengers involved in the war between the two. And Rick plays a pivotal part, and then it's just immediately he opens up a portal and pushes Rick into the negative zone. Here you go.
Oh, get out of here. Get out of here. You're bothering me.
Fuck you. You just took that right out of my mouth.
Yes.
Go to the negative zone, kid. You bother me. Yeah.
Yeah. See? Yeah.
Yeah, so, negative zone. Yeah.
Rick's just kind of like, well, wait a second. And he gets punched right into the negative zone. Our final issue after being attacked by a nihilist, you just go to the negative zone. How big is the negative zone, by the way? I mean, is it like maybe
real big?
It's like one city block. A nihilist is sitting on one side. Anybody who drops in there, here he comes again. The nihilist attacks Rick. Rick defeats him with some kind of crazy beam of unknown force from his head. Shortly after, Rick is pulled from the negative zone by the Supreme Intelligence and told he is going to be the savior of the human race, and that deep within him lies a power to bring forth the greatest heroes from the 40s. And he does just that to battle Ronan's now attacking Kree. 1940s Cap, Submariner, Human Torch, the Angel, the Patriot, the Vision, not the Vision we're talking about here, Blazing Skull, and the Finn all help. Did I put this? No, I didn't say the Finn already. The Finn, there's so many 40s superheroes, it's crazy. All help him face Ronan's forces, but only briefly. As they fade, Rick then reaches out and freezes. Freezes. Now, when I say freeze, I don't mean like wrapped in ice. Just mentally makes everybody stop.
Big old freeze tag.
Yeah, exactly. All the Skrulls and Kree just stop in place. Using whatever newfound power that Rick has. I don't even know if it's a power. I think it's just this one thing that the Supreme Intelligence allowed him to do or gave him the power to do. He doesn't continue to do this again. Not
really. Whenever they do, I think they've come close once or twice, but it's always been a specific story.
We switch back real quick. All right. The Kree and the Skrulls are just stopped, locked in place. Nothing's happening. Everybody's just completely still. And we switch back to H. Warren Craddock, who's on a pulpit, dispensing his alien bashing, his
paranoia.
Alien bash. Yes, paranoia. And all of a sudden we find out that the veil is lifted and he is a Skrull as well. So H. Warren Craddock is then beaten by the mob that he is preaching to, beaten to death. As the Skrull, obviously he's trying to run for cover and they catch him and then they beat him to death. And therefore, here's the other bit of that Easter egg, which I thought was neat. back in that issue of Fantastic Four, there were actually 4 Skrulls. But at the end of that issue, when Reed hypnotizes them, the only thing you see is 3 cows in the field. So they built off of that and took this 4th Skrull that was supposedly running around the United States or running around the world, and dispensing this alien paranoia propaganda and all this crazy stuff, and using him as the Skrull. So I thought that was really neat. I definitely
that's a Roy Thomas thing. Roy Thomas was big on finding these little, sometimes even too minuscule bits of like continuity and going, oh, and making a whole storyline out of them. Sometimes it's like this where it's cool, and sometimes it's like, okay, dude, relax. Not everyone named Grayson in DC needs to be related.
Turns out that the Omniwave device helped unleash Rick's powers, like Mark was talking about there. Rick collapses, and we soon determined, and we find out, that Mar-Vell must bond with Rick again. Remember, guys, supposedly Rick Jones's atoms would trade places with Mar-Vell. So I'm sure there's some crazy stuff going on now that both of them are inhabiting the same plane of existence. But anyway, we find out, okay, we've got to get back to the way it was. Mar-Vell must bond with him again, sending one of them into the negative zone. But Mar-Vell doesn't want to just yet because, he's worried about becoming a prisoner again. But he relents and he goes back, and the Avengers are returned to Earth without Goliath. All right. Now here's where things get. I don't even know if I want to jump into the Inhumans yet. I want to talk about the end of this book.
The Inhumans part isn't really as important as the rest of the stuff. The Inhumans is just a stepping stone on the way.
I honestly felt like that was kind of like something they were trying to shoehorn in there, because they're like, okay, the Skrulls bomb the city, nothing happens, we got to go find Black Bolt. And we find Black Bolt, we get treated to like the whole family history between him and Maximus. And granted, I felt something there, but it just felt like this is kind of out of place in this storyline. I don't know why, other than just to kind of give these guys a rub and say, okay, hey, look, we got Inhumans.
Maybe they're trying to give a boost, because they had the Inhuman story. It said Amazing Adventures. They had Inhumans for like the first 10 or 12 issues. Maybe they were just trying to give that a little bit of a boost.
Okay. It might be like WrestleMania, where they just try to get everybody on the card.
And that I could very well see. I mean, you only have, I don't know how many titles that Marvel has at this time. You only have so many titles to get these characters out there. And if they're your characters, or a character that you feel is going to be involved in a storyline later on down the road, of course you want to be like, hey, check these guys out. This is kind of what's going on in their neck of the woods. And we also had to kind of give a reason for Rick Jones to get kidnapped. And that's like,
does there really need to be a reason?
No, just kidnap the kid. But okay. Anyway, I want to talk about like why the hell's going on with the Skrulls and the Kree? Are they still like frozen in place for the rest of eternity, or is this something that's ever touched on again? Al, do you know?
Oh no, they're not frozen. They get unfrozen. But I mean, basically, knowing what I know about the character, the whole point of this whole thing wasn't to untap any potential. It was just so the Supreme Intelligence could be in charge again. I mean, that's all. The reason he was doing that was just because he wants to be in charge. So I'm sure he just had the Kree go, he talked to, I'm sure he brokered some peace real quick with the Skrull Emperor and had all his men retreat. So
okay.
So what I think you're saying is this was all an elaborate plan to bop the man.
Well, the Supreme Intelligence had to get out of the holding cell, and just like you said, he was the head dude initially, and then Ronan come in and took over his throne, and then he put all this into place to get out of there. And really, we're just kind of scratching the surface of this Kree Skrull stuff. I mean, we don't really dive into this huge war, which is what I thought we were going to get, right, Mark? I mean, you thought we were.
Yeah, I thought the same thing the first time I read it. Yeah, but you want more like that? Did you ever read Operation Galactic Storm from the 90s?
I know that, but I have not read it now.
Yeah, it's again Kree and Skrull and Shi'ar fighting now, and there's a lot more of the alien battle stuff.
I can picture the covers.
Because there's also more Supreme Intelligence being a complete dick.
No,
I've heard that Infinity is a huge, like, the Avengers in space, fighting a galactic war.
I haven't read Infinity.
I haven't got to that one yet, so I can't say about that one.
Yeah, I went into this. I think all it was just it was a way to get kind of like the Avengers into space and in the midst of this conflict and understand that it's out there, and then send everybody back home so that we're just kind of like on edge. All right, there could be, we're in the middle of this war that's going on between these two races, and anything could happen at any time. That's kind of the vibe that I got.
I know. I remember reading somewhere Roy Thomas said he took like the idea for like World War II, like the Battle of Midway Island, where it's this tiny little island that doesn't really matter, but it's like right in between Japan and the United States, west coast of the United States. Mm-hmm. So it was a big, like those huge fights over it just because it was strategically important. And he was like, that's what Earth is. Using that analogy. That
it's funny. That was kind of my favorite part of the whole book was when Ronan tried to explain why the Earth was so important. He was like, "It's like we need it. It's halfway between here and the Skrull Empire." And I'm like, "That's the only thing in this book that made any sense." In this entire story, that's what I came with. And I'm like, the Earth is a strategic outpost for the Kree or for the Skrull because it's halfway to the other people's, the other alien race's empire. I'm like, that makes a lot of sense. Good for you guys.
Yeah, you put a big refueling station up there. That way you don't have to worry. You get there, you refuel, and then you're still pretty fresh when you go to fight them.
Rick Jones. Let's talk Rick Jones.
I like Rick Jones.
Oh, Rick Jones.
Rick Jones, bitch. Mark, I mean, did you have any feelings about Rick Jones going into this at all? I mean, I know you're a Hulk guy, so you know a lot about Rick Jones.
Let me give you the answer. I wish Banner had left him to die out in the fuck Rick Jones.
Okay.
He has no point. He is not. I mean, Rick
saved the universe. He just saved our world, Mark. What do you mean he don't have a point?
Rick Jones was best when he was owing his life to Banner and the Hulk, and making, and trying to keep him safe because Banner essentially gave his life to save Rick Jones when he, like a moron, wandered into a nuclear test site like a dumbass.
To be fair, shouldn't they have better security at a nuclear test site? I mean, you shouldn't just be having teenagers be able to drive in there.
I'm not going to argue with you about that. You're not wrong. But, I guess they figured who the fuck would be driving out here? And there's old Rick Jones who's got to be in the middle of everything. Fucking diva. So...
Talk about shoehorn. Let's talk about Rick Jones.
So it's just, here's the thing. I've always hated the Rick Jones character. I've always been like, why is, in a book full of gods and monsters, this fucking asshole can't read a sign to say off the nuclear test site, is just bumbling about. And then these writers start giving him all of this important stuff to do when he has no powers. He's an obnoxious twerp. Fuck Rick Jones. How do you like that answer? On
the other side of this table.
So I'm still unclear what you're saying. You're a little vague, dude. You're a little vague.
Al, give a rebuttal there. What do you have to say? You said you like the guy.
I do like Rick Jones. Now, I started reading Rick Jones with reading Peter David's Hulk run with Rick in it. When the Gray Hulk was around, then he turned green. So I'm used to a bit more mature and like useful Rick Jones. But except now, granted, yes, that was stupid. I'm never going to defend. I mean, what he did there in that Hulk 1. I mean, yeah, they should have had better security, but yeah, that was a dumb thing of his. I'm not going to argue that at all. But unlike most other teen sidekicks, like if you read Just League of America and Snapper Carr, he's an annoying pain in the ass and does nothing. Rick Jones, at least when you read these issues, jumps into fights. He at least helps. I mean, sometimes he's more helpful than some of the Avengers. I mean, if you like these issues, he's at least fighting back with them. So as for a point of view, like intro character, let's say, or more relatable character, like let's say Rob, the reason they brought in Robin, or like the reason they were bringing, let's say, Scrappy Doo, for instance, he is way less annoying than most of those characters. I'd rather be or hang out with Rick Jones than Scrappy Doo any day.
No, I'm good with this now. I'm good with referring to Rick Jones as the Scrappy Doo of the Marvel Universe.
You know what? You can have that still. I don't mind.
I like what Al says about how Rick gets involved, because there's two instances that he clearly helps out the team. And I think that a lot of it is, just our writers saying, hey, this is an everyday person hanging out with these heroes who can save the hero's ass when it needs to be done sometimes as well, without powers, just smarts. And we've already kind of talked about the smarts that Rick Jones has. We won't go back there.
If I wanted to read about everyday people solving extraordinary problems, I'd read about police officers.
You read Batman?
Yeah.
Touche.
You can defend the Rick Jones character all you want.
You don't like him.
I've always found him to be an annoying character.
that conversation's done. I think I don't have anything else to add here. I'm looking. Do you let's just go with overall thoughts. Mark, you voiced your I don't want to say derision. Derision's kind of tough. That's kind of extreme, but I mean,
I was
you didn't
baited
like
and switched. I was sold a bill of goods. I was told this is the Kree Skrull War. I get a couple of issues of Captain Marvel running around with no pants on, and the Vision making eyes at the Scarlet Witch, and Quicksilver being a douchebag. But that's kind of how he is all the time. Then some horse shit about the Skrulls, turning into the Avengers and firing the other Avengers. Then there's some more horse shit about the Inhumans. And finally we get to this Kree Skrull War, and it's two separate stories kind of intersecting, but not really having anything to do with one another. And there's no fucking war going on. None. Zero. Kaput. It's a bullshit story, a bill of goods, and I'm sorry I had anything to do with it. I am sorry.
No, I agree a bit, especially the first time, because this is the second time I read this whole thing. And the first time I read it, similar things like, well, when's the big war happening? I enjoyed it more this time because I kind of knew what I was getting into. And you kind of have to view it. It's not a war. It's kind of it's going with the analogy of, like they said, of Midway Island. It's World War II from their perspective. They're missing 99%. They only see the 3 times that Nazi, the Japanese or Americans landed on their island. That's all they knew about World War II, so to speak. I don't know exactly how many times. I don't know the historical facts of that, but that's all they know, and that's what the Kree Skrull War is. It's the Avengers' little bit of view of this big outside war. They kind of take a peek and that's it. Although I do want to drop something on you now. Have you guys read the next issue to see what happens when Hawkeye comes back?
No, I was wondering what would happen because he's obviously stuck on that ship.
I just sent the message.
I see it there. What?
That's what he's wearing.
Oh my gosh.
That's when the skirt costume
Mark,
shows up.
Can you pull that up and give our listeners a description as to the costume change?
Is he just naked wearing a cocksock?
No.
My. Close, though. Sir, pull that skirt down. My goodness, that's a lot of thigh.
Wow.
Clint, you need to shave.
Hey, Hawkeye, we can see your doodle.
Behold all, though the garments be new and strange, 'tis surely the Avenger called Goliath. Oh, yeah, they call me Goliath, baby. Flip up the old skirt there. Okay.
Dude, if there's even a slight wind, you're going to see if he's circumcised.
Notice he is an archer, therefore he can hit from far away. He doesn't have to do a whole lot of movement, I would assume. But I know Hawkeye's been involved in some Donnybrooks up close and personal.
I want to see Jeremy Renner in this outfit. Doing the Marilyn Monroe thing with the steam coming up from the grate, holding his skirt down.
The next teaser for the end game.
Yeah, that's it.
You wanted Ronan? Too bad. Ladies and
He
gentlemen.
was wearing before. I mean, let's face it. His costumes kind of suck. I mean, look at that Goliath outfit.
Yeah,
he has pants, suspenders, and just the shoulder area of a shirt. I mean, how the hell does that stay on?
Yeah, he's half lumberjack, half He-Man with that outfit. And then there's this getup. Happy birthday, Mr. President.
Well,
I mean, people now make fun of the classic Hawkeye costume with the H. I'm like, no, that's good.
yeah,
In comparison.
thankful. Be thankful. Wow. So
I can't get this image out of my head now. Just Hawkeye standing there shooting arrows, dicking balls, just waving in the breeze.
Well, and anything, I don't know if there is anything left unsaid here, but
Funny.
That's the story. I mean, they did touch on the bit on the romance. The sad thing is they don't even say that romance thing kind of flies out of nowhere with Captain Marvel and the Queen or the Princess.
Oh,
they
yeah.
mention that at the end, but they don't even barely interact. I don't know where that came from.
I've seen her. She's in maybe 5 panels, I think, if that.
Yeah. That is what they retcon to being the origin for Hulkling from Young Avengers.
Oh, really?
Apparently, they did get it on.
So that's their son.
Yeah.
Okay, I did not know that. I knew of Hulkling though, because I remember reading Young Avengers, and he was. I remember him. The big reveal where they find out that he's a Skrull, right?
Yeah, he's her daughter or her son in Marvels.
That's right. Very cool, ladies and gentlemen. This has been Source Materials coverage of the Kree Skrull War. As much as we could cover it, I want to thank Al Sedano coming on here and putting up with this craziness. He may not be our guide any longer, Mark. So anytime we hop back to the Bronze Age, we may be stranded there, sir. Let's send ourselves a letter.
He was having fun. No, it's all right. You're coming back, right, Al?
Yeah, we'll see.
Perfect answer. So, Al, I know you do a podcast. I kind of plugged it there at the beginning. Please hit us with everything that you would like to plug, sir.
Yep. Well, right now it's basically just the one show. So Resurrections, an Adam Warlock and Thanos podcast, all about Adam Warlock and Thanos. It's right there in the title. Resurrectionsadamwarlock.tumblr.com, or go on Twitter. Talk to me on Twitter at AdamThanosPod. Yeah. So right now the next thing coming up is this week, if I can get it out, Warlock number 12, solo Pip the Troll adventure. So
Pip the Troll, always an entertaining character. I know you've been doing some guest spots too. I mean, you don't have to list them or anything, but I know other people can find you guest spotting on some other shows as well. So check that out, ladies and gentlemen. Probably stumble upon something Al's been on here if you check out some other podcasts in regards to comics and pop culture, right?
Oh yeah, I list them all on that Tumblr page anyway. It'll be all on there when I'm guesting on something.
Cool deal. So. All right. Well, Mark Radulich, what do we have in store for us on the Radulich in Broadcasting schedule, sir?
All right. Tomorrow on the Radulich Broadcasting Network is Jesse and I will be getting together again. We'll be reviewing Black Mirror, Bandersnatch. The day after tomorrow, it's me. It's more of me and Jesse. Oh boy, it's Metal Hammer of Doom, Queenstrike, The Verdict.
Right.
You ready for it, Jesse?
I'm ready, buddy. I'm ready.
Get all up in that Queenstrike, all up in that Empire.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Possibly, maybe, if I can get Pat drunk enough, we'll be doing commentary for the boxing match on Fox. Sean Porter versus Jordanis Ugas.
Gesundheit.
Thank you. Monday, March 11th, in honor of the new Captain Marvel movie. So this was like a dual thing. We started with the Kree Skrull War, and we're moving into some Captain Marvel proper with Carol Danvers. The trade paperback for her solo series, Captain Marvel Volume 1, harder, faster, more, yes.
Don't think that's how it goes. It evolves every week.
I practiced that earlier, by the way. I pitched that one on my wife, and I'm like, hey, we're gonna be talking about Captain Marvel, and I did that bit, and she just looked at me, and I'm like, what? It's funny, right? Right? She's like, yeah, I'm going to bed. All right. I'll take.
But it's only 2 in the afternoon.
Just to get away from you.
Higher, further, faster, more. Yes. And then the next day, on the 12th of March, we'll be reviewing Captain Marvel. Apparently, there was much ado about nothing. Disney's doing damage control. Everything will be fine. If you are a toxic masculine who hates this movie and you're downvoting her on Rotten Tomatoes, none of that's seeming to matter. So we'll talk about it. Myself and Robert Winfrey will delve into the not a controversy. I wanted it to be more of a controversy. I wanted it to be like Ghostbusters level controversy about Brie Larson and her comments and everything. But once again, it's a non-story. But we're going to talk about it regardless. And we'll actually maybe review the movie for a few minutes. The next night, Metal Hammer of Doom, In Flames, The Mask. And then we'll end the week with a little bit of anime, TV party tonight, One Punch Man. Last week, we had Emerald Twilight on Source Material. Can Hal Jordan play with madness? You'll find out. Damn you, Hollywood. We did a review of Fighting with My Family, which is the Paige story from the WWE. And then Jesse and I reviewed the new Dream Theater. Jesse, did we like it? Well, you'll find out if you listen to the podcast. And finally, TV party tonight for Carmen Sandiego, the new animated Netflix show. And that is all I have to pitch for the time being.
Okay.
That's it.
He has no idea about that schedule, Mark. It's unending, Al. It's unending.
I tell you, every time something changes for 2020, I just beat my head against the wall because I don't feel like fixing it.
Yeah, ladies and gentlemen, I'll throw the old canned plugs in here, but real quick, I just want to toot my own horn here. I actually had a piece that got posted today on the UnspokenDecade.com. I went back and experienced the Ultra Force cartoon last year while my wife was on vacation, and I did a episode breakdown of what I watched happen before my eyes on all 13 episodes of the Ultra Force cartoon. If you don't remember the Ultra Force cartoon, that's okay. I don't think I knew it existed until last year. But it's great 90s animated goodness, and I had a fun time watching it, relaying my experiences. So if you like to read, go to the UnspokenDecade.com. You should be able to find the title of the article is Experiencing the Ultra Force cartoon. So you can check that out, give it a read. I got some visuals in there, and I got some links to some great YouTube videos. Check it out. Other than that, for Al Sedano, for Mark Radulich, I'm Jesse Starcher. Have a good one. Bye-bye. Thank you all for joining us. Make sure to give that Radulich in Broadcasting Facebook page a like to stay up on top of all the great podcasts we have to offer. We are at home on Spreaker, but you can also find us on iTunes, Stitcher, TuneIn Radio, and recently we have hit the air on Spotify. Find your favorite podcast platform and type in RADULICH to subscribe for some great content. If you enjoyed this show, please feel free to share and spread the word. And as always, we appreciate any feedback and look forward to entertaining you again soon. All right, Mark, you ready?
Hit it, Johnny.
Let me jump on there. That's Mark Radulich bringing the tunes as usual.
Love is in the air. Android love is in the air.
Oh, that's up your alley, Mark Radulich. Android love.
Android love is driving me mad. It's making me crazy. It's amazing. I can sing to you and I don't have a problem. I start to talk normal and suddenly
you have to sing everything.
I certainly wouldn't.
The conversation still did, yeah. It doesn't come across as natural, no.
Wait.
I'm doing that the entire podcast. Thank you, Al.
No, do not.
Enabler, yes.
This big plan.
Yeah, Hank Pym, Captain Slapaho. That's what happened in a UFC fight once. One guy got hit so hard he went into the negative zone.
That's pretty crazy.
Avengers Forever, I think, touches on it a bit because there is Rick Jones and the Supreme Intelligence hanging out again in that story.
They need their own show. Rick Jones and the Supreme Intelligence, like sharing an apartment. Kind of like Felix and Oscar, the odd couple, you know what I mean? Rick Jones, he's trying to keep the place neat. The Supreme Intelligence is messy. Get it?
Slime all over.
Not everyone's from Gotham.
Well, okay. Dirty, rotten Skrull. Somebody make a Monty Python reference quick.
He got better.
Is your wife a goer? You know what I mean? Nudge, nudge. Say no more. Say no more. Come on now. Your wife a goer?
Yeah. You say, winks a good as a nudge, huh?
That's a
we
shrubbery.
call this the active meeting.
You and me, baby. Din, 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 din.
A reference is what I said. A reference. Not all of the references. A reference.
We did a medley. We were like dueling pianos there. I cough in your general direction. I was bring us a shrubbery.
No, stop it.
Not too nice, not too big, but a nice one.
And one that doesn't cost too much. You know what it's like, Jesse?
Tell me.
It's like everyone's getting ready for a gangbang, and the girl won't commit to it and starts crying.
Oh,
now everyone's just naked holding their dicks, and there's a crying girl,
What?
and they can't get anything started. And
Why?
Rick Jones is the crying girl in this
jeez.
gangbang of a story.
I am not following that at all, but hey.
By the way, true story.
Oh, you cried?
Oh, burn. We've already went to
get
gangbang. I don't know how much further we could go down, so please
There's
continue.
a lot of yoga porn where at some point some guy's ball sack and dick just falls out of his shorts.
We have a guest on here for the third time. You think
That's all I can think about when I look at this picture.
All I know-
Shooting arrows and all of a sudden just doing.
I'm sure there are plenty out there just like, okay, first 10 minutes were bad enough. Click. A listen's a listen. That's all I'll say. I'll take one listen, I don't
I don't want any more Bloodhound Gang references, please.